Hello, and this is week 2. We are talking about finishing up chapter 1, talking about stages of group development. Chapter 2 is the required reading for this week. It is about social work practice, and I'll let you read that on your own. I'm not going to lecture on that because that's really just a review of some of the classes that you've already had. There'll be a short quiz on that, but for this lecture, I'm only talking about the stages of development. Initially, when you're starting to plan for your groups, and you want to think about this for project number 3, think about the size. How many members would you like to have? So group members or groups of 5 are more preferred than any higher number. 8 to 10 works, but about 5 are probably the best number for a good cohesive group. Higher numbers, usually there's less participation. There's somebody that can fall off, kind of sit in the shadows and not really participate. And lower numbers, a lot of people don't want to say anything because there's a fear of alienation, and there's not a lot of trust when they're lower numbers. Even numbers have more conflict than odd numbers because you have the buddy system going where two and two kind of have more, the gang up on each other. You also need to think about, do I want an open-ended group or a closed-ended group? Open-ended groups are groups that are ongoing. If you look at Alcoholics Anonymous, Dialectical Behavior Therapy for Adults usually has also open-ended groups where individuals can join every 4 weeks or so. Alcoholics Anonymous, anybody can come at any time. It has some benefits because open-ended groups, really new members can add some new perspectives. But the concerns are that when you have new members and ongoing, it takes a while to build that rapport. And so there's sometimes people are a little bit more inhibited and they don't want to open up. And there's not as much trust because there's constant shifting in the membership. Closed-ended groups are definitely more effective. The membership remains constant and there's a less likelihood that the cohesion won't happen. It's more likely that cohesion will happen. So you've decided on if you're going to have an open-ended or closed-ended group. You've already decided on how many members you're going to have. Now you have to decide on the duration. How long will the groups last? Not just the 8 weeks or 10 weeks, but the duration of each group session. If you have only 1 hour, it's really hard to build the rapport and get anything done. 2 hours is most effective. If you go any longer than 2 hours, a lot of times people, like you remember if you've been in classrooms, the longer you sit there, the harder it is to stay awake. You become drowsy, you're frustrated, it's hard to sit still anymore, and you're unable to concentrate. So about a 2 hour duration is the best. As a group leader, you have to really plan for your groups and look at the duration. So if I'm saying we're going to stay here for 2 hours, I need to see if I can cut that to make sure that we end on time. The longer you go over, the less respect your group members have for you, and that you can't get your members to participate either. They just get frustrated. So the intake process. I have to think about, how am I going to gather information about the concerns and needs of my members? I have to identify their needs during this process, and I have to set tentative goals for my group. The members at this point are kind of committing to pursue the situation. And I also, during the intake process, I have to think about the selection of my members. Who am I going to have participate in the group? What are the ages? What are the genders? What is the level of education? The more homogeneous a group is, the more similar they are, the higher likelihood that the group is going to be cohesive and trust will be gained and you can move forward and there's not a lot of conflict. In pre-adolescence, it's important to remember that you should have just the same sex in the group. In middle adolescence, you can have a more variety of individuals participating. You also, when you think about members, think about their behaviors, their behavioral attributes. Are they hyperactive? Are they shy? What kind of things are they bringing to the group that might be more difficult to manage in the group and for you as a leader? Multiple hyperactive individuals can be really, really chaotic when you're running a group, especially in adolescents. So you selected your members, you've done the intake. Now you need to do the assessment and planning. I need to meet with all my members and do a deeper, more in-depth assessment of what their needs are, what their personal goals are, and clearly identify the statements of goals. So making sure they understand that this is the goal that we're going for, that we have a group that's ending. We need to look at, we're going to assess assess our group members and individuals to see, have we reached that goal in the end. So I'm planning for the group. Once I've done the planning, I know where I'm moving forward with it. I'm going to develop the group and the intervention. So in dialectical behavior therapy, when I developed that for adolescent girls, the assessment and planning, I did not have individual treatment with all the different girls. They had different therapists, but they came to me for the group. And even so, I had to meet with them individually to find out what are your specific goals in mental health, in your specific goals, personal goals, so I can see where did I need to go with the treatment, because there's different stages of the treatment. Where do I start with this? When it came to the group development, I had to fit the group criteria or the intervention to those particular individuals that I had selected. But the group was developing well. They became very cohesive. The intervention was very, very well received. And after, I think it was 12 weeks that we went, 16 weeks, we started the evaluation and termination process. Evaluation was ongoing because we did a group, therapeutic note every week, and to see where people are, where the members are, they participating, are they not, and we'd send evaluation reports to their individual therapists. But the termination part, you have to look at. We talked about termination in the beginning. This individual's new. We had 16 weeks. As we got closer to the 16-week mark, the individuals that were in the group, they were sad. They did not want the termination to end, the group to end, because they had become really close. But we have the determination for us to end was, we accomplished our goals. We did the 16 weeks we were supposed to. The individuals met their goal. We ran out of time where we had to terminate. Some groups, though, they do fail to achieve their goals. I observed actually a group. It was ACT, so aggression replacement training for youth, and the group did not meet their goals. The clients were struggling to meet their goals, and the group ended. It was not effective. Sometimes groups end because the leader relocates. You think about social workers move every about 5 years or so they change jobs, and so the leader relocates and the group ends because of that. Or during the termination process, it's a lot like individual treatment. If you're working with an individual, they do become sad because they have that loss. They have developed a sense of closeness with you as a group leader, closeness with their group cohort, and it really it's a feelings of abandonment, rejection, and loss can be very, very common, and that is something that you have to address with your participants, and we'll address that later also in the semester on how to do the termination piece in groups. So the book has several models of group development. The one that most of us in social work talk about is the Tuckman model. I think mainly because it's an easy one to remember. But the Tuckman model talks about sequential stages of growth in groups, with starting with the forming process, the forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So it's kind of an easy thing to remember. But the forming, the groups are members are becoming oriented to each other. They get to know each other. They're comfortable. Um, they work on being accepted. They're very polite in the beginning. Then once they start feeling more comfortable in the group, and the power struggles start. Who wants to be the leader? Who is the leader? They have this ganging up thing where actually groups also. If you are a leader in the group, you'll notice that the participants kind of become like your children, and like the siblings start fighting for your attention and when they want to be popular. But you see that storming going on in the group. Once they've kind of figured out who has the power, who is what, they've kind of joined a little bit better, they start the norming process where they kind of become more cohesive and more committed. We know who has the power, we know where the power struggles are, we've overcome that. Now we become more cohesive and we can start performing, and the group works to unite to achieve their group goals. And once they have achieved their goals, they go through the adjourning, the termination process. So group cohesion, it can be it's when you have a cohesive group, you see that there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of joy, they find companionship with each other, they attain not just group goals but the personal goals. There's somewhat of a prestige to be in a group that is cohesive. You feel like I belong somewhere. Like I said, you get enjoyment out of it and you have emotional support. Some of the costs of being in a cohesive group or in a group is that sometimes you're with people that you don't like. We don't like everybody. We try as social workers, but there are times that we just, like you see, group members don't like each other. They do not get along. You also have to have a lot of time and effort to work with others, to giving of yourself. You have to be able to face criticism and do distasteful tasks. And sometimes you have to go through very boring meetings. So cohesive groups, when you have a cohesive group, you have a lot lower level of absenteeism and a lot less member turnover, because they feel like they have a sense of belonging. Cohesive members are more likely to complete their tasks and conform to group norms because you're more homogeneous. You have more of the same ideas of what the group should look like, so you're more likely to conform to the group. Members who are also more likely to work together and protect the group from external criticism. So groups that are cohesive, when other members criticize the group or group members, they stick up for each other. Trust is definitely a necessary condition for cohesive groups. You will find that you have to spend a lot of time building the rapport in the group, building rapport between group members, especially in treatment groups, so that there's a level of trust that people can disclose and feel safe to disclose in your group. So cohesion will decrease when there is a long-term disagreement on how to resolve major problems. So you have people that used to be very cohesive, they disagree on one point, they can't get along, they can't understand each other's point of view, they refuse to listen to each other, and that cohesiveness will dissolve in your group. When you have unrealistic expectations of group members, so for example, you're forcing a shy person to be actively participating in the group, that cohesion is going to fall apart because that shy person is going to actually withdraw from the group. A lot of times the shy people who don't say much, they still participate with verbal or nonverbal behaviors or nonverbal communication, where you can see on their faces they're sitting there nodding, they're participating, but they're not actually talking yet. So allowing them the time and the time they need to become comfortable in the group to start sharing, but don't have unrealistic expectations of pushing them to become the outgoing people in the group. Cohesion also decreases when a dominating member and repulsive behaviors are not addressed. So I'm not going to tell you about some of the things that clients do in groups. that can be very repulsive that you have to stop. You can't be doing things that are disgusting. Yeah, that you have to. You as the group leader, you have to stop that and deal with it on the side. We'll talk about that later. Cohesion also decreases when the group interferes with outside activities. We found that we could not run in a group for adolescents during football season because all of the students wanted to participate in the after school activities, and we couldn't get people to attend. So thinking about what is going on in the community, what else is happening that they would like to participate and that might interfere. Um, Group cohesion definitely can change over time depending on the circumstances. So watching them, they can be really, really close, and by the time you terminate, they can all be at each other's throats. You never know. You have to really just assess ongoing. So thinking ahead about your groups, you have your group paper at the part number 3, where you are actually creating a group, a 4-week curriculum. So think about what type of group. Do you want a treatment group? Do you want a support group? What kind of group are you going to create? How are you going to do the intake process? What kind of memberships do you want? How are you going to assess the group members? Are they a good fit for your group? Where are you going to find them? What interventions are you going to use, and how are you going to evaluate your group's progress? How do you intend to plan for termination? And what are some things that you can do to increase cohesion in your groups? So planning ahead, think about how you're going to do that as you move through the process. We're going to talk more about some of these areas, group cohesion and conflict resolution and things like that later in the semester. I look forward to seeing your posts, and I will talk to you next week.